What is going on, everyone? How's the weather treating you? Currently, where I am, it's snowing, blowing, with the chance of being shut in for a few days. But hey, that's life in the Pacific Northwest, right? How about we talk about a state that's currently sitting in the mid-70s and pleasant, the Magnolia State, Mississippi. Mississippi is most often considered the worst state in the Union, right behind Arkansas, and for good reason. Mississippi has one of the worst education systems in the country, a failing economy, and out-of-control poverty. They also lead the nation in obesity. On the plus side of Magnolia State, you have the people and the cost of living. And there's something down to earth and honest about the people of Mississippi. My biological father is originally from just outside of Meridian, and I spent a few summers there in the backwoods of Chunky, Mississippi. That's right, called Chunky. There's a river there called the Chunky River, so obviously the names have something to do with each other. Now, another great thing about this state, like I said, is the cost of living. It is dirt cheap to live in the state of Mississippi. The average resident keeps about 50% of their income. That's after taxes and living expenses. You still have half your money you earned, which most other states, it's somewhere in the 40 area. It's not good. But Mississippi has that part together, and that's a big plus. So Mississippi isn't all that bad. Today's video is about one bad aspect of life in the Magnolia State, the worst towns. They have a lot of them, so I'm gonna pick out 10, and we're gonna go with it. Let's take a look at my top 10 worst towns in Mississippi. Number 10, Flora, Mississippi. Flora is a town named after an early resident, Flora Man Jones, and is located just northwest of Jackson. The town is doing horribly when it comes to education. Now, the student-to-teacher ratio is really low, giving the students more one-on-one time, but for some reason, the average test score is 65% lower than the national average. This usually kind of tells you it's resources. The teachers aren't getting what they need. Just my opinion, with a little bit of background to it. Anyway, the poverty level in Flora is 161% higher than the national average. There's a lot of broke people here. Now, remember when I said the people of Mississippi are good people? This is a perfect example. It's a very poor community with very low crime. You never see that, but this town is still in bad shape. The average rent in Mississippi is the lowest in the nation, and the town of Flora is 38% lower than that. And stop typing. There's nothing wrong with cheap rent unless it's crazy cheap, then you gotta start wondering, why is it so cheap? Flora is a perfect example. Number 9, Delille, Mississippi. Delille is located along the Wolf River near where the river lets into the St. Louis Bay. Nothing to do with St. Louis, Missouri. Being so close to the water, the cost of living is relatively high for the area, which is to be expected for being a coastal town. The goods and services index is nearly 10% higher than the state's average, and the housing index is 92% higher than the state average. The overall cost of living here is about 32% higher than the rest of the state. Now, this is where it gets weird. The unemployment in Delille is 84% higher than the national average, and the poverty level in Delille is 100% higher than the national average. Yet the overall crime rate in Delille is 85% lower than the national average. See? Good people. Like I said before, they're dirt poor, they don't have jobs, but they ain't ripping each other off. But the downside, like the rest of Mississippi, they have a school system that should be scrapped and just start from scratch. Only 70% of the people in Delille have completed high school. Those aren't good numbers. Number 8, Durant, Mississippi. Durant was founded in 1858 as a station on the Mississippi Central Railroad. Today, the population is less than 2,500 that have little to no work. The income per capita here is $12,000, with the poverty level at 201% higher than the national average. That's not good. And guess what? The schools here suck as well. Only about 72% of the people in Durant have completed high school. Durant is another one that doesn't have a lot of crime. But last October, Durant police say 2 men got into a fight at a beauty store. One man pulled a knife and stabbed the other one, and he went into critical condition. That's how many times he got stabbed. Multiple times. What went wrong in your life that gets you to the point where you feel pulling a knife on a dude while shopping for cucumber face wash is a good idea? Number 7, Walnut, Mississippi. The town of Walnut is a very small town of only 750 residents. This town has apparently come to the conclusion that all that reading stuff is overrated. The average school test score here is 57% lower than the national average, and the graduation rate is about 67%. Walnut was established in 1872 on land belonging to Henry Hopkins, an early settler and town founder, basically. The town was initially called Hopkins, but was changed to Walnut in 1876, so much for honoring the founder. You swap the name out 4 years later. I wonder if he was still alive and in town when they changed the name. That would be awkward. You're the toast of the town one day, the next day you walk into the local bar and ask, hey, anyone know anything about that sign on Main Street that says Walnut? Nobody says a word or makes eye contact with you. They just stare at their drink. Awkward! Number 6, Mayorsville, Mississippi. This little town of about 550 people is on the banks of the Mississippi River in the Mississippi Delta. Mayorsville is not a place for employment. It's actually said to be one of the worst places in the state for jobs. And unless they've had some drastic changes since, let's say, Tuesday, it still is a really bad place to get a job. The income per capita is only $6,000 a year. That's 79% lower than the national average. And that leaves the town's poverty at about 207% higher than the national average. And again, bad everything but crime. They got an A+ rating for crime. The hell, Mississippi. Number 5, Derma, Mississippi. Finally, a town with some crime in the Magnolia State. Derma has been the center of so many crimes, it's mind-blowing. This is a town with only about 900 residents, but the year-over-year crime rate has spiked 187%. In the past year, there's been a bunch of crimes, including countless burglaries of fast food establishments, post office was robbed, a church was robbed, and a gas station was robbed, and most recently, a man from Derma was charged with a 2016 murder. Those DNA services are just giving people up left and right. The poverty level in Derma is 169% higher than the national average. I'm so happy to find a bad town with bad poverty and bad crime in Mississippi. It's the way it should be. The universe feels balanced again. Number 4, Butte, Mississippi. Butte is located right outside the northern area of the Homachito National Forest, and God, I hope I pronounced that right. The overall crime rate is 47% higher than the national average. While it has been decreasing by 2% last year, crime is still so bad that the Community Network panel had a meeting last month discussing how the police will approach the organized crime in the area. Organized crime in a town of 1,000 people. Are you kidding me? This is a town that on their Wikipedia page lists their economy as a diner. Nothing else but a diner. And they have organized crime. This town shouldn't even have internet. The poverty rate in Butte is 186% higher than the national average. Number 3, Byhalia, Mississippi. Byhalia is a small town of just 1,200 residents. As of 2018, the violent crime rate in the town was 71% higher than the Mississippi average. Efforts are being made to better the town in this category, and it's expected that the crime rate in 2019 will be lower than 2018. However, in late 2018, this didn't help their stats, but there was a hit and run and a high-speed chase in a small town that really kind of screws your rate. Only 69% of the people in Byhalia have completed high school, and the average school test score in Byhalia is 63% lower than the national average. And to round things off, the poverty level in this town is 145% higher than the national average. Don't move here. Number 2, Crosby, Mississippi. Crosby, Mississippi is located within the Homachito National Forest. Again, that's National Forest, I can't pronounce it. I hope that's right. I've looked it up like 3 times. Sounds right. Other people have said it 5 different ways, but we're going with Homachito. The population of Crosby is 285 residents. This is not an ideal place when you need a job. I mean, you always need one unless you decide to live off the grid and eat tree bark and drink pond water. Or you're 37 and still live with your parents so you can work on your art. And that's just a made-up story that has nothing to do with any of my cousins. Since it is a made-up story, we should give that character a name. Let's call him Dykel Riggs. And that has nothing to do with my cousin Michael. The unemployment rate in Crosby is 115% higher than the national average. The poverty level in Crosby is 195% higher than the national average. Don't move to Crosby, especially if your name's Dykel Riggs. And number 1, Tutwiler, Mississippi. Tutwiler is a small town of only about 1,000 residents, not including the ever-growing population of the Tallahatchie County Correctional Facility. Problematic inmates from South Carolina and Vermont, Wyoming have recently transferred to this facility in the town. Why Vermont? Why Wyoming? I don't know. I get South Carolina. It's in the South and it's somewhat close. But Vermont, Wyoming? Is that what they do to convicts in Vermont and Wyoming, to threaten them that they're going to transfer them to Mississippi? If you threaten to move me to Mississippi, I would quit whatever I was doing that was offending anyone. There's no way. I don't care if I was just going there to work at the local Dairy Queen. I would not be doing what I was being accused of to get me sent to Mississippi. 62% of the people in Tutwiler have completed high school. That's not a good number, folks. I don't know if you've been following along, but when only 62% of the people in town have graduated high school, that's not good. The overall crime rate is only 64% higher than the national average, so it's not terrible, but the crime rate has been increasing by 94% year over year. Stay out of Tutwiler. Tutwiler is the worst town in Mississippi for this list. All right, that's my top 10 worst towns in Mississippi. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. As always, don't forget to leave me a comment, hit that like button, hit that dislike button, whatever you want. If you like what you saw here, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget all the links below. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.